My wife betrayed me by having an affair with my cousin, and they even had a child together. My family kept this secret hidden from me for years. Now that I have achieved success, they want to reconnect with me. Please bear with me as I share this entire story, because there's a lot of background to explain. I am a 44-year-old man and have been married for 10 years. My wife, who is 41, and I have been together for 13 years. We have a stable and happy life with our 8-year-old son. However, this is not my first marriage. At 22, I married my first wife, whom I'll call Amy. Regrettably, our marriage ended in divorce 3 years later, for reasons I still don't fully understand. Amy and I had been together since middle school, practically childhood sweethearts. We decided to get married after college when we had stable careers. Initially, everything was fine, but things began to feel off as time passed. Despite my efforts to keep our relationship alive, Amy seemed disinterested. A few weeks before our third wedding anniversary, she handed me divorce papers, saying she was done. I tried to save our marriage, but her only explanation was that she was no longer in love with me. Although I was heartbroken and angry, I didn't want to drag out the divorce. I decided to proceed and let her go. The process was straightforward since we had few shared assets. After the divorce, Amy moved to another town and cut off all contact. What hurt the most was how my family turned their backs on me. During this challenging time, instead of supporting me, they distanced themselves. They stopped communicating, blocked me on every platform, and even refused to see me when I visited. It was a devastating period for me. For years, I struggled to cope. I quit my job and stayed home, lost and broken. Luckily, my friends stood by me. They encouraged me to rebuild my life and helped me regain hope. Eventually, I decided to pursue a long-time dream of opening my own eatery. During my marriage with Amy, I had delayed this dream to save money, but after the divorce, I went ahead. With the support of friends and investors, I opened my restaurant. It took me 4 years to stabilize my life. 2 years after the restaurant's success, I met my current wife at an event. She complimented my restaurant and we started talking. After 3 years of dating, I proposed to her, wanting to give love another chance. 10 years later, we are happily married with a son. My business has also thrived. What started as a single restaurant grew into a hospitality chain, and I am now the CEO of a successful company. We manage several restaurants and hotels, with plans to expand further. Recently, I agreed to an interview about my journey. I felt it symbolized how far I had come. However, that interview unexpectedly brought my family back into my life. After seeing the broadcast, they came to my workplace 3 days ago. When my receptionist informed me that my family was there, I was confused. Initially, I thought she meant my wife and son, but she clarified it was my sister and parents. Despite my reluctance, I stepped out to meet them. It was strange seeing them after 2 decades. They praised my accomplishments and even claimed they should have been part of my success story. They expressed a desire to meet my wife and son, criticizing me for not trying hard enough to reconnect after the divorce. During our conversation, the truth finally came out. Amy had been cheating on me with my cousin, my father's brother's son. My family had known all along and had been helping her keep it a secret. They claimed they had reasons for their actions, reasons they believed were justified. I finally understood why they had stood by her side, why I hadn't received an invitation to family gatherings for the past 20 years, and why I had been ostracized despite being blameless. I never liked my cousin. Let's call him Carl. He was an obnoxious, entitled individual who always acted as if the world revolved around him. Regrettably, his father and the rest of the family believed he deserved special treatment, since his mother had passed away when he was just 6 months old. Carl was never disciplined or held accountable for his actions, which allowed him to live a life free of consequences. Adding to this dynamic, my uncle, Carl's father, was my father's boss and the founder of the family business where my dad worked. This only solidified Carl's immunity from criticism. When Carl decided he wanted to pursue Amy, even though she was my wife, and she agreed, the family chose to support them instead of me. They didn't want to risk upsetting my uncle. Sacrificing their relationship with me seemed like an easy choice. After all, my uncle had made it abundantly clear during the divorce proceedings that no family members, including my parents and sister, should have any contact with me. When Amy announced that she was expecting my child, my family apparently attempted to resist this decision, but quickly caved under my uncle's pressure. To maintain a connection with their future grandson, they chose to sever all ties with me. To make matters worse, when Amy filed for divorce, no one informed me that she was pregnant. I had no clue she was carrying my child since she didn't show any outward signs at the time, and she had moved out long before the divorce was finalized. As a result, I was completely unaware that I had become a father. Now, my daughter, who is almost 20 years old, believes Carl is her biological father, even though she has never met me. Hearing this from my parents felt like listening to a story from someone else's life. It was surreal and hard to comprehend. I had to pinch myself to accept that this was my reality. The truth was evident. My family had abandoned me out of cowardice. They could have told me the truth and allowed me to handle it. Instead, they prioritized appeasing my uncle, fearing that he might push my father out of the family business. Even so, my father could have taken legal action to defend himself. After 20 years of silence, they chose to come clean only after seeing that I was thriving. Suddenly, they were overwhelmed with guilt and wanted to reconcile, but I saw through their act of remorse. I told them to leave once they had finished recounting their tale, because I wasn't ready to forgive them. As we sat in the lobby of my workplace, I tried to remain composed to avoid escalating the situation. However, as soon as I asked them to leave, they started pleading with me to consider their perspective, emphasizing how difficult the situation had been for them. I made it clear that I believed they were only approaching me now to gain some benefit from my success. They adamantly denied this accusation. My sister even claimed that they were partly responsible for my achievements, reminding me that they had come up with the name of my restaurant years ago. I found her claim audacious, since they had provided no real support during my journey. My friends had been the ones to stand by me and help build everything I now had. The sheer absurdity of her statement made me laugh. I warned them that if they didn't leave, I would have security escort them out. When they continued to argue, I followed through with my promise, and they were forcibly removed from the building. As they were being let out, they tried to justify their actions, insisting they had no other choice. But I knew better. They made their decision long ago, and now they had to live with the consequences. They survived 2 decades without me, and I'm certain they can continue to do so. In the days following this confrontation, they didn't give up. Though they haven't re-entered my workplace, they've been loitering outside, sending apologetic emails to my work address, and messaging me incessantly on social media. Their tone has shifted to one of desperation, but I've chosen to ignore them entirely. I've discussed the situation with my wife, as the revelation about my daughter has left us with difficult decisions. We're contemplating whether to locate her and attempt to establish contact. At the same time, we have to deal with my family, who seem determined to regain my attention. My wife has suggested that I invite them over for a conversation to address the unresolved issues and clear the toxic air. She believes it might help my emotional well-being. However, I'm reluctant to take that step, given the weight of the betrayal and the turmoil I'm currently experiencing. I lack the emotional energy to deal with them right now, so I prefer to keep ignoring them until they disappear. We are grappling with how to move forward and handle this situation. After 20 years of silence, I question whether I'm wrong for refusing to give my parents another chance to reconnect. A week and 3 days have passed since my initial post, and my spouse and I have decided to continue ignoring my relatives. Thankfully, they haven't shown up at my workplace in the last few days, likely due to exhaustion or fear of security. Either way, I'm relieved. Their absence has made it much easier for me to stop thinking about them. When they were around, I felt guilty about how I was handling the situation, but now that they're no longer visiting, I no longer feel bad about ignoring their messages. No matter how many apologies they send, nothing will erase the fact that they fail me as a family. I've even stopped blocking their attempts to contact me through new accounts and email addresses. At this point, it feels pointless. I'll keep ignoring them, regardless of how many times they try to reach out. Let's move on to the other issue we're facing, my daughter. Neither my wife nor I knew how to approach this matter. My parents revealed her name and where she attends college during our conversation. With this information, my assistant located her social media profiles. I'm torn about whether it's appropriate to contact her. I don't know how to explain that I'm her biological father. I can't just show up at her home and demand a relationship. She's an adult now. Besides, given what I've learned about Amy, I'd rather not involve her in this at all. I've lost all respect for her and my family. They're all spineless and deceitful. However, my feelings about my daughter are different. She's still my biological child, regardless of who raised her. If anyone has suggestions on how to approach her, or if I even should, please share. I also want to express my gratitude to everyone who commented on my previous post. Your advice has been incredibly valuable. After reviewing the advice I received, my wife and I decided to take action. Waiting for the perfect time to contact my daughter seemed futile. We needed to face it head on. Since she lives in another state, we felt it wasn't appropriate to visit her unannounced. Instead, we sent her a message on Instagram, explaining everything politely. Now, we're waiting for her response. This is undoubtedly a challenging situation for everyone involved. My wife's unwavering support as I try to reconnect with my daughter has been incredible. I sincerely hope she replies because I want to build a relationship with her. Meanwhile, my parents haven't visited my workplace in a while. Yesterday, they sent me a long email apologizing for everything and expressing their desire to repair our relationship. They promised not to contact me again unless I initiated it. While I'm relieved they finally understood my boundaries, I'm still not ready to forgive them. Learning the truth about their 20-year silence has deepened my feelings of betrayal and hurt. I don't see myself reconciling with them anytime soon. However, the silver lining is that I've learned more about my daughter and hope she'll give me a chance to be part of her life. 2 weeks after messaging my daughter, I finally received a response. She admitted she had spoken to her mother and confirmed that I am her biological father. She was understandably shocked, having believed Carl was her father for the past 20 years. She told me she wants to meet me and my family. Since she can't afford to travel right now and isn't speaking to her family, we've decided to visit her this weekend. She mentioned that her mother initially tried to deny everything, but eventually had to come clean. I haven't heard from Amy yet, and I hope it stays that way. However, when my family discovered I had contacted my daughter, they broke their promise and started reaching out again. My uncle, in particular, seems upset that his secret was exposed. My father, still intimidated by his older brother, has been pleading with me to absolve them of involvement. I see no point in doing so. They were clearly complicit in hiding this from me. Today, my family and I finally met my daughter. Initially, it was awkward and emotional, but overall, it was a heartwarming experience. Despite being raised by two people I deeply distrust, she has grown into a kind, intelligent, and mature young woman. During our conversation, she shared her thoughts on Amy and Carl's actions. While she doesn't plan to cut them out of her life entirely, she intends to distance herself for a while as she processes everything. She also mentioned needing time to build a relationship with me, which I completely understand. She seemed to bond well with my wife and her half-brother, and we spent a wonderful day together. Over dinner, we learned that my parents had maintained contact with her all these years. She always found their attachment strange, but now understands their motives. This has been a whirlwind of emotions for all of us, but we're determined to move forward and make the best of this opportunity. Despite everything Amy, Carl, and my family have done, I'm grateful for the chance to finally reconnect with my daughter. Thank you for watching. If you haven't already, please subscribe and hit the notification bell to stay updated with more incredible real-life stories.